Hello and welcome to Busted Open.
Nope.
Wrong
show. Wrong
That's
show.
That's my other show.
That's the right show.
Oh,
We have to X that now. We got blooper reel. We got a blooper reel.
I will say the execution was flawless.
Yeah.
Execution was flawless. Okay, we want to try it again.
All right, one more time.
hello and welcome to Not a Sports Show. I'm your host, Joanna Henry, but we have some other people on here today. We have Mr. Dino, Mr. Phranchyze, and who else? Oh yeah, my dad, MArkHenry.
That's right. That's right.
And
Who's our special guest?
Our special guest today is Mr. James Roday.
Yeah.
Nice. Nicely done, JoJo.
Killed it.
Nailed it.
James, JoJo is a huge fan, and so she had to come into the studio today for the first time because she's such a big fan of Psych and a fan of yours.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of JoJo, so this is just as big a deal for me as it is for you.
Wow. So you got some questions you want to ask?
Yes. First of all, I would like to ask if you have a special episode between wrestlers that were on your show, like which one did you like better? When the Big Show was on your show,
Ooh.
or when the Miz was on your show? When
JoJo's
Charlotte
coming
Flair
with the
was
hard
on your
questions.
show?
Or when your dad was not on the show? Is there any-
Get him.
Oh, did I say that out loud? I didn't say that out loud.
You know, we had a good number of WWE superstars on our show, and the fact that your dad didn't make the cut is something that you could rib him about for years. There's really no
This wasn't
excuse
good
for it.
enough, yo.
I think it was just a matter of finding the right thing and then running out of time. But it was always on our to-do list to get Mark on the show, and it's not over yet because apparently we're just going to keep making things with Psych branding. So it'll happen. But as far as the ones that we did do, I can tell you that the Big Show's episode was one of mine. I think I wrote and directed that one, and it was sort of like us riffing on first-person found footage horror movies,
Yeah.
which is also right in my
So
wheelhouse.
good.
We were out in the woods, getting rained on and poured on. I remember that being a lot of fun, and Big Show was a lot of fun too. He was just a trooper. He was a good sport.
Okay. You
Okay.
have more questions
Yes.
before I shut you down?
Yes. My next question is, which one do you like better? Acting, directing, screenwriting? Which one's your favorite?
That is a very good question. You're bringing it. You know, like you're bringing the strong stuff, and it's early for me. It's the morning. It's still the morning. You know, I think maybe 10 years ago that would have been a really easy question. I would have said acting because that's what I studied in college, and that was sort of the dream. And the fact that I've achieved any modicum of success is so crazy to me because it was such an unrealistic dream to have. But then, you know, the other opportunities started presenting themselves, and I would say probably directing has gotten just even, is right there neck and neck with acting. Because I really enjoy it and I've always been interested in it, and you don't have to go through hair and makeup and you don't have to wear a wardrobe. And it's pretty great. So I would say it's pretty much a tie at this point. There you go.
Being a working actress, this is your time to shoot your shot. You know, you're talking to big time producers.
Now, I would make an obvious counter for you, JoJo, as to like, what is your favorite subject that you're studying in school?
Oh.
And don't pull punches. Don't mince words. There has to be winner.
That would probably be music class.
Music, because you sing and dance, and
Yeah.
you're like his favorite brother and friend, show mate, Dule. You're a triple threat. Did you have a question about Dule?
Oh, yes, I did. Are you friends with Dule? I mean, I like Gus, so I think I'm going to call him Gus, but
Fair enough.
Yeah, he is basically his avatar. We are friends. For example, I did attend his wedding all the way in Guatemala and paid a very, very steep price for doing so.
Wow. He didn't pay for the flight?
It's called Montezuma's Revenge.
Oh.
Called that for a long
Oh,
time.
no.
Oh. Speaking of dark, let's
Ooh, gravy?
let's get into gravy.
I love
Oh
gravy.
boy.
Oh man.
So, Gabriel Luna is a friend of the show. He's a real good friend of Phranchyze's, and we had him on the other day. He wanted to say "Go Spurs, go,"
Ooh.
and he also he wants to know, James. And now, after watching the film, I also want to know, how did you get out all the sounds of everybody walking around on the blood-soaked floor?
Man, it was one of the biggest challenges in post that we had.
Could imagine.
And I give mad props to our sound mixers, because the truth is we did not actually have to do a lot of ADR specifically for the gooey, sticky, bloody footsteps. They did a pretty great job of mixing that out. But it's something that we didn't think about, because we thought we were being incredibly efficient by shooting the movie in chronological order, which hardly ever happens in movies. But since it was all in one location and we were all going to be there every day, we were like, oh, this is going to be such a great experience for the actors, because they're not going to have to jump around and do the end first. Like, they're going to do it as it happens. But things get bloody like pretty fast. And then the rest of the movie, there was just blood everywhere on everybody, and sticky as you can imagine. And that was it. That was the shoot from about day 4 on. But it was a concern, and we knew it. We knew it while we were shooting it, because we could hear it. And I was like, oh man, if we end up having to ADR this whole movie, I'm going to be so bummed, and I'm going to have to apologize to everybody. But we got lucky.
What an unbelievably eclectic cast that y'all had. Did you have anything to do with the casting, or is all that on the casting director?
I picked everybody. I got really lucky, because it's a crazy movie, and I think when you're reading it on the page, it's pretty easy to imagine it, going sideways or being a nightmare and a terrible decision that would haunt you to your grave. So people really did have to take a leap of faith that it was going to be funny, and that the gags were going to be well executed, and the gore was going to look good, and trust that it was actually going to be a fun thing to do. And so I ended up with actors that, really I had no business getting, because they were either horror fans, or it turns out they had very dark senses of humor. We were also able to shoot it in I think 16 days. So it wasn't a big commitment. And it was in Los Angeles, which means most people were sleeping in their own beds at night. So it was kind of a perfect storm of why not? What the hell else am I doing? Let's do it. And we had so much fun. And Gabe Luna, a.k.a. El Terminator.
Yes, sir. Term Daddy.
The Mexican with the lexicon.
Yes, sir.
That's right,
Yeah.
dude.
Young Ginobili.
If I recall, it might have been his first movie. And you would never have guessed that, because he's absolutely fantastic.
So good.
He's amazing. Everybody's amazing in it. I fucking love that movie.
Nobody was weak. There was not, normally you say, oh man, bless his heart.
Yeah.
He tried real hard. But there was no weak point in as far as from the acting standpoint. And
it was basically like summer camp. Nobody ever went back to their trailer. We had a little green room, and we all just hung out there. Gabe would bring his guitar in. He was writing impromptu songs about the movie with lyrics that were apropos to the characters. And Sutton Foster would sit there and do her needlework that she does in between takes, and it was just we were at camp. It was a lot of fun.
So for those people who haven't seen the movie, there's just a slew of film references in it, and it's almost like the dialogue is written in this beautiful way of film reference, and it fits so well into the story, because the main characters are cinephiles, and it's kind of their whole bit, right? So my question is was that entirely scripted, or how much improvisation came from the actors? Oh, I'm going to throw this in there, I'm going to throw this in there, or did that all come from the script?
You know what? my because I come from a lot of improv, and because Psych was so heavily improv, my plan was that it was going to be an improv heavy movie and everybody had free reign to do their thing. What we discovered once we started shooting was that script
Timing
was so overwritten within inches of its life that there was no breath, there was no moment to jam anything, because we had just stuffed it with every joke and every reference that we could think of.
Yeah.
So if anything, I think the operation became like, let's pull back, let's lose this joke, let's let this moment breathe a little bit, let's let this land a little bit, because we had so long. We wrote that script in 2005 and we made the movie in 2013. Right. And we would revisit it at least once a year. So it was 8 years of jokes and references stockpiled by the time we finally went to camera.
I like the fact that you evolved. You can see it evolve into using other things from other movies like To the Light. It's the same way as the Big Show version on Psych. You know, it's like you saw the Blair Witch, you saw little pieces of other things, and is that your style? Would you consider that? Because I don't see a lot of people actually doing that, other than movies where we want to see that.
Yeah, it was my first movie, and a great piece of advice that I was given when I was younger was, you're only going to get to make your first movie once, if you're lucky enough to make a movie at all. So make sure it's you, make sure it's authentically you, and make sure that if nothing else, you're representing your voice, because that's the first time anybody's going to see you as a filmmaker. And the truth is, that's what I'd been doing for, the better part of a decade, is pop culture and horror where there was room for it, and comedy. And so I just felt like I should stay in my lane, do something that I knew I could do, hit the middle of a target for a cult fan base, and not try to get too cute or too ambitious the first time out. So for me, it made a lot of sense to sort of stay in the pool that I had been swimming in for so long, and just do it with an R rating, basically.
Go ahead, Phranchyze.
I wanted to circle back to kind of what Dino was asking you about, kind of how the improv aspect of the script worked out. You had talked a little bit about kind of the self-scouting that you had done throughout the shooting, saying, hey, maybe this is a little overwritten. Maybe we need to, give some of these jokes time to breathe. Was that more of a collaborative process, with some of the talent in terms of kind of finding those new spaces? Or was there more of a trust factor there where it's like, hey, we've pulled this back. Let's see kind of what you can put in here. Or was it kind of like, hey, we pulled this back to give it space, but I'm thinking we can go this way? Can you speak to that process a little bit?
A lot of it was the talent involved, for sure, right, because they were so generous. Like we would try everything that was on the page at least once, at least initially. And then we all just kind of trusted each other for the moments that didn't feel right, or that felt too arched, or like, the key to me was we can have all the fun that we want in that movie, and we can get away with murder, and it can kind of live in its own sort of surreal reality. But if you don't care about any of the people that are dying, then it kind of becomes just a silly exercise.
Right.
And it might be funny, but it's not actually going to resonate. You're not actually going to remember the movie. You'll just remember, oh yeah, I think I laughed a lot during Gravy. So anytime somebody died, or a scene leading up to a death, it was like the discussion was always like, is this landing? And if it's not landing, why isn't it landing? And if it's because a bunch of jokes on either side of it don't need to be there, let's lose them. And we all just sort of trusted each other to make sure that, there was a handful of beats in that movie that kind of needed land and have some space. And I wasn't precious about any of the words, right, and they weren't precious about any of their lines. And that is perfect. Like when you can get that, you're in really good shape.
The other thing was the versatility from Psych to watching Gravy and a million little things. Like I got more of a respect and appreciation for you in a million little things, because I was like, I've been missing the boat. I didn't know James had that range. Like I'm sitting here crying like a little sissy.
easy, big fella.
You mean negotiate those words?
Easy,
okay,
big fella.
That's inappropriate.
Negotiate
now.
those
My
words
daughter's
in his
right
head.
here.
Easy, big
I can't
fella.
say that. I don't want to get ostracized from the world.
Easy, big fella.
Yeah, but I felt, man, that movie or that show brings out a lot of emotion in you because it's you being not James Roday, not being Shawn Spencer, not being the other characters that you played, but it's a grown man role. Like, and I was just like, geez.
It's a grown man role.
I want to remember him as this funny, fun guy that was the host on Raw, who I came and professed my love for the show. And I was like, man, I love you guys, man. I watch our show, repeats all the time. And you just came across as who you are, like just a really, really cool dude and a lot of fun. Like, I don't want you to ever feel uptight. Do you, boo? Have a ball.
First of all, everybody knows you're a big teddy bear. Nobody's surprised that you sit and cry at network television. Nobody's surprised by that.
No.
Oh
Also, I'll never forget that conversation because I couldn't believe that not only did you have the slightest clue of who I was that day, but that you had actually seen the show. Was kind of mind-blowing to me. And it was actually that conversation that made me feel more comfortable about being there, frankly. Because, it's a club. It's a pretty tight circle, the WWE. And it's like you walk in and you just immediately kind of feel like you're someplace that you're not supposed to be because you're not a superstar. You're like an outsider. And you come from Hollywood, and it's like you want to introduce yourself to people and you want to fanboy out. But like I was nervous. I was straight up nervous. Because the only ones that I had met at that point, I think, were I had met Cena and Mike and Mickey. But I was like, I don't know like if these people are into like these guest hosts and people coming through here and getting to talk and do stuff on their show and then leave. Like I did not know what to expect. And I was nervous and I was quiet and I was being weird and shy. And then you just came over and grabbed me and it loosened me up. And the rest, as they say, is history because I belong in the WWE Hall of Fame now. Like everyone knows that.
That is an adorable meet cute story.
We can get the Twitter campaign started for you,
It's
buddy.
going.
No problem.
It's getting run up the flagpole for sure.
But yeah, a million little things came out of nowhere, man. I didn't see it coming. I wasn't looking to do another series, but the material really spoke to me. The breast cancer storyline really spoke to me because I'd never seen it done through the prism of the male experience. And breast cancer has touched my family multiple times, and it seemed like a story that was worth telling. And so I kind of did a life pivot, frankly, because those network shows are nine months of the year. You're out of the game. And I had mostly been directing, and that was kind of the track that I was on. And then I was like, you know what? Sometimes you just got to roll with it. If something feels right, you just gotta roll with it and be thankful and appreciative that the opportunity is there. And now I'm back in Canada. So
what's next, man?
I tell you, man, I cannot get out of Vancouver. I can't. So it's been a blessing, man. It really has. And that cast is great. And it's interesting that you call it a grown man role because we're all actually grown-ups on that show. And that's partly why I think it feels different is that it's like, oh, this is just a bunch of grown-ass men and women who are like taking care of their business and recognize that like, oh, this is a tough industry and we all have jobs and that's a good thing. Let's get the work done. Let's take care of each other and then let's go home. And that's my first experience with just, being an actor, worrying about my own material, not worrying about anything else, not wearing any other hats. And it's been good. It's been good for me.
I watched Gravy last night. What was your favorite, or give me a good example of like a happy accident from that set of something that like wasn't planned, but like just kind of was born out of necessity. And you look at the film going like, I really love that. And there was no plan for that.
Right off the top of my head, we couldn't afford to do the gag that was meant to kill Yannick the chef. He was supposed to get decapitated, and then his head was supposed to swing back and forth like a tetherball on the chain.
Yeah.
And I hate VFX, and I insisted on doing it practically, and we just didn't have any money left to pull it off the way that it would have needed to be pulled off. And as a result, we shot that late in the movie, obviously, and so we had a little bit of time to try and come up with some different takes on how he would die. And we came up with that sort of really intimate head twist where they're basically hugging, like the day before, and I love that. Like, it's so much better than a big silly gore gag would have been, because they spent so much time together in that kitchen, getting to know each other, and also fighting to the death. That having it in that way where they essentially like are face to face, and there's almost a sweet respect to it, I thought was way better than anything we could have come up with like a gag.
And then you then you get the crisscross joke out of it. Yeah, which is awesome.
And that, of course, bore the crisscross joke.
Yes. And you know what? Like, that ended up being my second favorite part of the movie, is the scenes in the kitchen with the chef and him telling him how he poisoned how he poisoned his last owner or employer, and that's how he ended up in the place where he was. Yeah. And he's like, such good stuff, man. And I want you to come on again one of these days, and I don't want to wear you out now, but thank you so much for coming on. I know you're a busy guy. And
man, guys, this was great. The pleasure was all mine, Mark. Like I said, I'll never forget how cool you were when I came on Raw. So I'm always here for you, brother. And you guys have a great show. You guys, you have a great vibe. JoJo, you're clearly the MVP. But everybody's doing their thing.
Yeah. We're all just going to ride JoJo's coattails here.
That's it, man.
Yeah. When you make it, tell them that you're an actress.
Oh, yes. I was actually in A Christmas Carol at the Zach Theater in Texas, and I played Fan, Scrooge's.
Congratulations. That's where I got my start. Theater in Texas. There you go. You're on the same track.
Y'all on the same track. Ain't that cool? Say thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, James.
Stay safe out there.
All right, man.
All right, brothers. Bye, lady.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, James.
Not a sports show.
Well, look at you.